These days, current events unfold on a dozen channels. Headlines all seem to be shouting, and good news can be as scarce as a moment to relax. So let's turn down the noise this summer, unplug just a little bit, and head to a shelter from the storms of life. The historic port city of Alpena, located on the Sunrise Shore of Michigan. Only a few hours' drive, but miles away from the weight of the world. Nestled between a vast forest and an endless clear blue bay, where the wonders of nature are as welcoming as the local hospitality. We can explore more than 200 shipwrecks in the largest freshwater sanctuary anywhere. Count the stairs to the top of a lighthouse, or the masts that jet into the harbor sky at moonrise. Let's take a trip to the friendly, picturesque city of Alpena, a haven from the world that's pure Michigan. Your trip begins at michigan.org.
For your viewing pleasure, this broadcast of the Municipal Council meeting of Alpena is made possible by the funding provided by the City of Alpena. Thank you for your generosity.
May 19th, 2014. Call to order, please.
Johnson? Here. Nielsen?
Here.
Noah?
Here.
Sexton?
Here.
Walagora?
Here. Rise for the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay.
Approval of the minutes from special session of May 1st, 2014, regular session May 5th, 2014, and I'll just verbally add the minutes from the closed session May 5th, 2014. No modifications, everything was fine. Oh, I had one that I wanted to clarify on the special session of May 1st. Jim Mikowski's name was spelled incorrectly, and his title at the CRTC base as commander should be added. So I brought that up with Karen. She'll make those corrections. Otherwise, fine. Any modifications to the agenda this evening?
Yes, I just had one. It's a request from Fresh Palette to utilize the alleyway by the center building.
Okay. Where are you at? New
Yeah.
business?
New business.
11A.
Yeah. No, we'll put it on the
13th.
13th. Where is that communication petition?
Yeah, it could be communication
Okay.
petitions. I don't know if they're here or not, but okay.
Yeah.
And you said temporary liquor license request for Fresh Palette? Okay. Do I have a second on that one?
Yes, second. When you're ready.
Nielsen?
Yes.
Noah?
Yes.
Sexton?
Yes.
Walagora?
Aye.
Johnson?
Yes.
Citizens appearing before council on non-agenda or agenda items are allowed 5 minutes to address your concerns. This is the only time during a council meeting that citizens are allowed to address council, with the exception tonight that we have a public hearing on the budget. So I'll also open for public comment just specifically on budget issues. But for right now, any other non-agenda or agenda items, if you do, please come to the podium and state your name and address for our records.
Good evening. My name is Robert Kennedy. I'm a resident of Harrisville, Michigan, and I'm here tonight to introduce myself as a candidate for the Michigan House of Representatives, a Democratic candidate in the 106 district here. My background is that I was actually born in Alpena County, raised in Iosco County. My parents had a small business there, a grocery store. Grew up there, graduated from high school in Oscoda, and attended ACC for 2 years, and then transferred to Michigan State University, where I graduated with a bachelor's degree in elementary education. I was very fortunate when I graduated. I was able to come back to northern Michigan, back to my hometown, and procure a job. I was an educator there. I taught school in Minnesota for 38 years. During that time, I was also in the Michigan National Guard, and actually ended up being able to fulfill my obligation here at the Alpena Armory. After a few years, I was in Battle Creek for a while, Sault Ste. Marie, Sheboygan, and then finished up here in Alpena. In 2008, I retired. My wife Margie and I built our retirement home and moved in 2010 in Harrisville. And that's where we live today. How come I'm getting into politics? That seems to be the big question that all my friends ask me. Why do you want to do that for? You're retired and you were a public servant once. Why do you want to do public service again? And the main reason is because I want to make sure all of us, all the constituents here in the 106th are represented, especially those of us who have been left out over the last 3 years. The primary things that I'm talking about as I go around and meet with groups is my number one issue is campaign finance reform. I think there's way too much money in the political system. The potential for corruption exists because of that large amount of money, and I would like to reduce that. I would like to give the average person the feeling that they can make a difference, that they can have access to the people that they have elected, and with the large amounts of money we have there now, that's difficult. The other problem with campaign finance is the amount of dark money that people are allowed to contribute without any transparency. So I think we really have to get a handle on those kinds of contributions. Public education, we need to adequately fund our public schools in real dollar increases each and every year. There's obviously some situations here in Alpena, down the road in the district I'm from, where, and I'm sure others throughout the district, where the funding reductions have certainly hurt our children, and we need to do better by them. Local units of government, such as yourselves, municipalities, county boards of commissioners, have also been hurt the last 3 years by the reductions in the state. It seems like they want to tout a balanced budget every year, or even a little bit of a surplus, but I think they're doing it on our backs of local services, backs of public safety, backs of roads. So we need to address that. When I taught science, and I was a strong advocate for outdoor education, environmental education, and good stewardship of our natural resources. And I would continue that as a state legislator. I would like to see us, I know we're going to meet the goal of 10% renewables to produce our electricity. I know we're going to meet that by 2015. We're almost there already, and I think we can do much better. I think we can do 30% of our energy created by renewables by 2035. We need to focus on that and accomplish that. We need to fix our roads, obviously, but I think we need to do it, unlike some of the proposals I just heard, that would hurt other services that we would typically get. We don't need to be taking money out of the general fund that would typically fund local units of government or education to fix our roads. I think we need to find a solution to do that without diverting money from other funds. But most importantly, I commit to you, the council, and the citizens of Alpena, that this is not the only time that you will see me. I will be back. I have cards and brochures after the meeting. If you're interested, it has my email and my phone number, and I would love to hear from you. I need to know what the issues are that the local units of government have. You people are the foundation of representative democracy. You're at the grassroots level, and if we're going to do our job in Lansing, we have to constantly be in communication with you, not just by email or not just by phone. So you will see me again, and I appreciate the opportunity to address you this evening. And like I said, I'll be here. Any questions after the meeting, I'll be more than happy to speak with you. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Robert. Okay, consent agenda, excuse me. Consent agenda this evening is bills to be allowed in the amount of $281,161.
I move we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Noah?
Yes.
Sexton?
Yep.
Walagora?
Aye.
Johnson?
Yes.
Nielsen?
Yes.
Okay, no announcements, no proclamations. We'll move down to the public hearing. So the public hearing on the city budget. I'll open the public hearing and open public comment. Any public comment whatsoever on the budget? Any written requests or comments received from the,
There was none.
close the public hearing portion. Karen, comments on the budget itself?
Well, I presented it on May 5th, so I'll just give you, review a few things. Our city policy is 10 to 20% fund balance. At the end of this year, we hope to be at about 2.5 million, which is 27% of fund balance. But by the end of 14-15, we'll be at 1.8 million, or about 18%. So we'll be right in that threshold. I just wanted to mention to the public, I know there's not anybody here, but obviously this is on YouTube if they want to see this presentation, or May 5th. We also have it on our website. And I wanted to mention to people too that the budget isn't just about the numbers. We also have council's goals in there. We have all the salaries, admin and hourly, capital project plan for 6 years. If people are wondering when their road is going to get worked on, they can look at the back in this capital projects and maybe have an idea. Sometimes we have to move those back due to budget, but at least they can have an idea of what we're gonna work on and what year. And then we have a good history of our grants for the last 10, maybe more years, of all the grants we've received and the projects we've completed with those. So that's very helpful. And then just narratives of each department. They've all done a narrative of what they're gonna try to accomplish next year. So that's also helpful for the public. So if they wanna glance through that, it is on the website. They can come in and get a copy, whatever they want. So I just wanted to be, aware of that. And then we're gonna do 2 million in capital projects in 14-15, we hope. That's what's in our budget. Water and sewer are about 573,000 of that. Our trailhead is 310,000. And then our Second Avenue Bridge, just the engineering work to start that a few years down the road is about 100,000. And again, capital projects are in our budget if everybody wants a detailed look at that. Our millages for the DDA will stay at 2, and our city millage at 16.2316. So those have not changed. Is there any questions on anything?
Just one other thing regarding capital projects. Of that 2 million, about 650,000 or 40,000 of that is from grants. So the rest would come from the various funds. But a little less than a third of it is from grants, which is what we try. They're becoming a little more difficult because of the match requirement. But on certain projects when we have to do them, such as the bridge, which will be coming up, which is for the most part paid by grants, primarily federal money, we are required to pay for the engineering costs. And that's what's one of the big items in the coming year, because we are responsible for that. Grant Street is a very large project that will be getting underway. There's a good-sized grant, but there's a large amount of that is still coming out of street and water and sewer funds in order to pay for that. So we don't do the projects like we used to by any means, but we are committed to always doing some, looking at the most critical and moving forward, because we'll be in much worse shape if we leave them and don't do anything. So I think all the departments have done a good job in terms of that, of really making the dollar stretch as far as we can, especially when it comes to capital projects.
Greg, is it fairly safe to say that the majority of the major projects you've done the last couple of years have been funded primarily with grant money?
They have a significant amount. It might not, some are actually over 50%, many of them are less. I think if you go into the budget near the end, I think it is, there is going back actually about 10 years to show you what the grants are per department that we are doing. And you'll see they're probably being reduced, especially those where we have to have a match. Some like our MISTA ones, our rental rehab or rental development, where we don't have to put anything in and actually get money for admin. It's very good for us, but some of the DNR and that it's become much more of a struggle. You saw that with the Trails project. We had to go and look at funding, local match from a lot of different funding sources. Before we just come to council, say how much money we needed, you guys would approve it, and we submit a grant. Now it's never that easy. So, Chief Jett will be, once the budget is approved, will be immediately filing an application to the USDA towards 2 more police cars, the same as what we did this past year. So they're always looking, and that's a big part of what we do, and the departments do it very well.
Well, I know, I'm sure council appreciates the staff's ability to get grant money and get matching funds, and I know a lot of projects in our community we wouldn't have been able to do if it wasn't for that, so thank you to staff for seeking those out.
Any other issues, comments, questions?
Just a couple of questions, if I may. And maybe this is more for Rich or Greg or whatever, but the street sweeper, I'm just I know we're replacing that this year, and that one has been around a lot of years past its useful life. I know we've done a lot of maintenance on that and such, and I'm just kind of curious on that end, is like, that was due to be replaced how many years ago? And
You want to go ahead and address that? I know I've seen on your desk, looking at.
We're actually working on the specs right now for the replacement model. We've delayed that. We used to, and Karen, correct me if I'm wrong, we used to be up around $300,000 a year that we could spend on equipment. Now we're down to about $200,000 a year that we could spend on equipment. Street sweeper, $170,000 minimum. One of our tandem dump trucks is about $175,000 to $180,000. So you can, you don't get to purchase a lot of equipment. Yeah, we have delayed some of these purchases that were needed before because other priorities were ahead of them. This one, we've put a lot of money into it. But it still functions. It's out sweeping right now, but it's probably the end of this year, it's going to be done. So that's why.
The duct tape is on.
Don't we have 2, Rich?
Yeah, we've got 2. We've got a vacuum model, and then we've got a mechanical one.
Okay.
This is the vacuum model, which is the old one of the 2 that we're going to replace.
Longer paper than
No,
that.
I did, but I got a lot of my questions as I researched a little bit more. So as I was going through, I went and checked off. That was the one. I just was curious on that. I guess the other question then would be for Karen. You said that our fund balance at the end of this year is going to be about 2.7. Okay, it wasn't projected at 2.7 when we did the budget. Do I have that correct? It was like 2.1. Is that is it?
You mean when we originally projected?
When
or-
we originally projected, yeah. I think if I have it correct, we were looking at like a 2.1, 2.2, and then we're going to end the year a lot stronger.
Yes, because
Okay.
we came in stronger too. Remember, we came in at about 30% of our fund balance, and we had expected to come lower than that, so yes.
And some of that, I'm not sure if we've had any projects that have been carried over, because sometimes that will be, especially if suddenly it's considerably bigger. It may be a major project that we had scheduled for this fiscal year, but now is going to be in the next. So that adds to the fund balance. It will just simply be deducted in the next year. And usually that's what happens when we have a big difference. But otherwise, the departments have done very well in keeping below budget on expenditures. And then once in a while, being able to squeeze out some additional revenue. So.
And I certainly, as Councilman Sexton has pointed out too, really do appreciate everyone's efforts on this. It seems like when we're getting any kind of an update from staff on where they are in budget-wise, the expenditures continuously come in under, and so I do really appreciate all the hard work and what you guys have done with that. So thank you from me.
Karen, just a quick question. I'm going to ask you to be psychic, just so you know. Personally, I'm fairly comfortable with the 18% projections. It does fall on our 10 to 20. But it was 27 last year. It was 30 the year before that. If you look into next year, do you think we're going to have that big chunk reduced from 18%, or do you think?
I think we're going to be better than
right around
18.
there? might be better.
I think we will be. I mean, we're still hoping that our revenue's gonna turn around a little bit. We are unfortunately still waiting for personal property tax to know in August what the vote's gonna be on that, and then what we're truly going to get to recover from that. You know, we get all kinds of answers on that, so there, it could go both ways, but I'm just kind of confident with everything that we've done in the last few years, that we're gonna come in this year better, even if a little bit, and then maybe better next year. We've taken a lot of steps, like with, all the benefits for the employees. We've taken steps with NEZs and all those abatements, and hopefully some of that'll start to pay off now. We're getting our little loans paid off, so I'm thinking we're walking towards positive. Maybe our revenue sharing will come back a little bit. They're talking about getting rid of the EVIPs, so possibly they'll look at giving us back some of our money.
After all that, do we have any big abatements coming off the books this year? I don't think we
No.
do we?
I think we got a couple IFTs, but there aren't anything real, yeah.
We do have a couple brownfields that will be coming off. The one at the, I think this year is the last year for the one at NOAA. So that money's being captured, going into the remediation fund. Well, it won't be captured anymore. It will be going into all the different millages. And the Lafarge one will be done in the next year, at the end of 15, I believe it is.
But that will depend also on if it's personal or not?
Yes, well, part of that, big chunk of that is, but there is real property improvements on there too that will come back onto the tax roll, so there is some of that.
Okay, thanks, Gary.
Yeah, for myself, I guess, I certainly appreciate the staff. Just specifically, I had a lot of clarification questions about the budget and the spending, and I called. I think I talked to Rich and Greg the most about it, but, and I encourage people to call. It's not just me, because I'm the mayor, can pick up the phone and call them. They'll take anybody's call if you have questions about things, and, you know, I appreciate the fact that, you know, we might be getting down below the 20 threshold, but if we have to continue to remember that people live here and they want decent parking lots and they want their streets swept and their brush and lawn picked up, so I'm not too worried about bringing that down, as long as we're still spending that money on things that improve people, residents, trying to.
We try to do a little of everything, a
It
little
is.
capital, a little bit of
And
services.
if you look at it, it is, I think,
Yeah.
a pretty good mix of everything. Some of the capital is directly towards making things more improved for the community and the residents themselves, so I'm satisfied with the budget, the way it's written.
And we'll watch it. I mean, if we come in this year not as good as we hope, then we'll really watch
Sure.
that and monitor, and we may have to adjust.
So, and that's I guess the good thing about the budget is it can be adjusted, and it is regularly, I guess you'd almost say. that
Right.
Sometimes adjusted in a positive manner and sometimes not, but.
And I agree with that, both the mayor and the mayor pro tem on the same things. It's like, you can look at that. I for one, if you know me, and the way that I run a business is basically, I don't ever like spending any more money than we've got coming in. So, you know, at first you look at that and say, well, you've got to do that. But at times, it's always been reasonable and acceptable that you have to invest, you know, not only in capital, but you have to invest in people as well. I mean, we're sitting here talking about how well the staff has been doing, and I truly appreciate that. And I think that the 1.5% increase is warranted in my mind. I've invested in my people. We've got great quality employees, and I think they should be rewarded. Managing in human resources, I'll never forget the one lesson that you learned from seeing others' mistakes, was that the most demotivating thing in the world is to tell somebody that they're not worth an investment, but yet you want them to continue to do a top-notch jobs and multiple job functions and everything else. So, you know, from my seat and from my point of view, it's like, this is a good investment. I am comfortable with the 18% as well. You know, I think that's probably on the low range of what I am comfortable with. And we get into next year and we have to, you know, kind of trim a little bit. We're all very capable of doing that as well, but I think the way this is written, I'm very comfortable with as well.
Maybe just add one comment, because he did mention the 1.5%. what wasn't really out there when we went through the budget last week is that, the unions and admins all got that 1.5%. Part of the rationale for that, besides the value of our employees, is that we have asked employees to contribute more to their health insurance. We've asked employees to contribute more to their pension funds. We've asked them to do more with less. So at the end of the day, even with that raise, they'll probably take home less than they have prior years because of the other contributions. So I wouldn't say it was our way of thinking, staff, but in all fairness, we have asked them to contribute in other areas, and it's to help ease that burden a little bit as well.
I think we would be remiss without reminding everybody that it is illegal and inappropriate to commingle dollars. The laws state very clearly, if you collect money for one system, you don't commingle those dollars for personnel or anything else in the city. And I think just the fact that the funds are being managed so well and so appropriately is reason enough for a big congratulations to our staff, and hope that they continue in the same way they always have. They're doing a great job.
We need 3 separate resolutions,
I
is that
do,
how I'm
please,
reading
yeah.
that?
This is according to the budget.
Okay. Well, if we're ready, let's just start picking them off, so to speak.
I'm trying to find 2 pages.
Everybody's gonna-
Is it
23.
22?
They're right on your
Yeah.
agenda, number
The
7.
pages, yes.
A7 fiscal year 2014 budget adoption resolution.
I move we approve the budget adoption resolution for 2014, 2015.
Second.
Sexton?
Yes.
Walagora?
Aye.
Johnson?
Yes.
Nielsen?
Yes.
Noah?
Yes.
And 8 is the adopt fiscal year 2014-15 appropriations resolution.
I move we adopt fiscal year 2014-15 appropriations resolution.
Second.
Walagora?
Aye.
Johnson?
Yes.
Nielsen?
Yes.
Noah?
Yes.
Sexton?
Yes.
And adopting the 2013-14 city budget.
That's this year's budget that was
That's the
amended.
amended budget for this year. It's number 9.
I move we adopt the amended 2013-2014 city budget.
Second.
Johnson?
Yes.
Nielsen?
Yes.
Noah?
Yes.
Sexton?
Yes.
Walagora?
Aye. Okay, thank you very much again.
Okay.
Report of officers, we have the first reading of ordinance number 14-428, ordinance amending chapter 62 by the addition of section 69-109, cost related to benefit computation.
Before I read this, and I know you're all excited, just briefly to kind of tell you where we were and why we decided to present a new section of the retirement ordinance for council's consideration. Over the past several years, the retirement board has taken up issues that have related to what's commonly referred to as an EDRO. EDRO is an eligible domestic retirement order, and it refers to how a public pension is split when an employee unfortunately suffers a consequence of a divorce action and the court orders that a portion of that public pension be awarded to his or her spouse. Also, there's an act in Michigan called an Act of Separate Maintenance, which also is a way to split a public pension where folks don't get divorced, but they've asked the court for a suit of separate maintenance, which allows each party to take their respective share of whatever marital assets there are. So we've run into that issue, and we've run into the issue of increasing costs for performing the service on the behalf of the city that relates to, which includes the fact that those plans have to be reviewed.
They're reviewed by myself as the attorney. Now, there's no separate cost for that, but there is time involved in that. There are actuarial costs for Louise to basically tell us what this is going to cost. Also tell us whether the plan option chosen in the EDRO is one that's available to the plan and one that we could do. Sometimes attorneys, unfortunately, try to get creative and try to put things in the EDRO that make sense as to how the parties are going to equalize their assets, but aren't in accordance with the retirement ordinance and aren't in accordance with state law. So those have to be fly-specced and made sure that they're not only appropriate legally, but appropriate financially as well. And because those costs have increased over the years, the retirement board has taken up the issue and tried to be fair with apportioning those costs amongst the employee and amongst the employee's spouse if appropriate. So the EDRO Act in Michigan does not call for a specific apportionment of cost amongst a participant, which is the employee, and an alternate payee, which is generally the spouse. It does allow for those costs to be recouped. It just doesn't say how they're done. And what we've decided to present to you for your consideration is the following. First of all, we believe all employees should have the opportunity to find out what their projected benefit payment would be, irrespective of whether they're going through any divorce action, just so they can kind of plan for retirement. But to do that, it creates a time constraint on Karen to figure that out. And so there's a cost to that. And over the years, we've had employees, and certainly don't mean to say it was inappropriate for them to do this, but we've had some employees that have asked consistently for that information. And it's time consuming and there's a cost for doing that. So we felt that the retirement board and staff felt that allowing them one free actuarial estimate was appropriate. We also felt that they should get one free final estimate during the course of their retirement, meaning within 30 days of their retirement effective date, they would get a final estimate as to what that's going to be. So we're proposing as well that if they want more than that, that be a cost that they bear. The other issue was if the EDRO calls for the apportionment of cost, and quite frankly, most of them do. Most of them say that the alternate payee shall pay cost proportionate with whatever benefit they get. So if it's a 50-50 split, then 50% of that actual cost should go to the participant, the employee, 50% should go to the alternate payee. Sometimes, however, when there's a divorce, there's only a certain number of years of the total number of years that are divisible in the marriage. So for example, married 13 years, but only 6 of those years are during city employment. Spouse would be entitled to 1/2 of 6/13. So normally the EDRO would provide that the costs that are associated with that be split in that fashion. So the employee would be paying maybe 75% of the cost, the alternate payee 25%. So this is really the first shot for consideration of doing all of those things. And so I'm going to read this, and I will read it as quickly as I can. This is, as Matt said, an ordinance that would add section 62-109 to the current retirement ordinance. Number one, the City of Alpena retirement system shall be administered in accordance with Michigan Compiled Law 38-1701 et sec, commonly known and cited as the Eligible Domestic Relations Order Act. Number two, a participant shall be entitled to one computation by the city clerk treasurer of the participant's estimated benefit prior to retirement at no cost to the participant. 3, a participant shall also be entitled to a computation by the city clerk treasurer of his or her projected retirement benefit under the retirement system within 30 days of the effective date of their retirement at no cost to the participant. 4, any other request for a computation of a participant's proposed benefit amount other than is noted in 2 and 3 above shall be at the cost of the plan participant. 5, any eligible domestic relations order concerning a participant and alternate payee entered pursuant to a judgment of divorce or separate maintenance shall comply with the City of Alpena Retirement System and MCL 38.1701, the Eligible Domestic Relations Order Act. 6, unless the participant's eligible domestic relations order states otherwise, all actuarial or other costs for determining whether a proposed eligible domestic relations order is in compliance with the City of Alpena Retirement System and MCL 38-1701 shall be borne by the participant. 7, if an approved eligible domestic relations order provides that any actuarial costs associated with the administration of same shall be borne equally or in some other proportionate share by the parties, then the City of Alpena shall have the right to receive payment for those costs from the participant and alternate payee before benefit payments begin. And number 8, should the participant and or alternate payee fail to pay the actuarial costs or costs of administering the eligible domestic relations order upon being billed by the City of Alpena, the City of Alpena shall be entitled to recoup these costs through either the commencement of legal action or through a reduction from a participant's and or alternate payee's monthly retirement benefit. The provisions of this ordinance shall take effect 10 days after being adopted by the municipal council and duly published. There is one change that we're already suggesting after we submitted this to council, and that is as to number 3, they're suggesting that it should state a participant shall also be entitled to a computation by the city clerk treasurer of his or her projected final benefit payment under the retirement system within 30 days of the effective date of their retirement at no cost to participant. The slight change is that we don't know what it's actually going to be until their final paycheck. And usually the final paycheck would normally coincide with the person's last date or within a week of their last date. So it's a little hard to tell them that until we have that. And there's some other computations in there in terms of what the system calls for in terms of vacation pay and things of that nature. Things that go into the final average compensation that allow the actuarial to tell them what the number actually is. So there's just that one slight change to number 3.
It's a ballpark number on what the fee would be.
About 500 to 1,000.
Is this something employees can figure out on their own, or
I
do
give
they
them-
really need an actuary to do it?
You need an actuary for actual numbers, because you have to reduce, they have different options they can choose when they retire. And it depends if they're married or not married, or divorced or not divorced. So there's a lot of little options, and they actuarially are reduced for each of those options. But we can tell them, based on what they make, their final average compensation, their multipliers, we can give them that, and they can have a good idea.
But if you're dealing with the domestic relations order,
That's-
that has to be done by an actuary, and so there is that cost. And really what this is doing is, I guess, codifying what has been an adopted policy of the retirement board. So it's just taking that policy, which they approved sometime last year, I think, actually.
I think it was before that, wasn't it, a couple years ago?
Okay, I know I was around, because I remember that, but now we're just putting it into the ordinance, and that's all it's doing. So it's taking what we've been doing as policy and putting it into ordinance.
Questions till next time?
Can you read it again?
Next time.
Next month we will. Because you made a change, you have to reread the whole thing.
I think Cindy had questions.
Can I just ask one question
Yes.
on number 8? Why does it have to be through either the commencement of legal action or through reduction? Why can't you just have it through reduction if they didn't pay?
Well, I'm the one who actually modified that from what it was, is because if they're not retiring for 15 years,
Oh,
do we want the retirement system to have to upfront that cost if it's $500 or $1,000
Right.
until they actually retire?
okay.
So,
Makes sense.
what we want is to be paid upon being billed by the party or parties, and that's the reason. So we
Makes
have the option. If it's very close to retirement, it may be just as easy to take it out.
And this allows someone on staff to make this decision?
Right, we
as to
can do
how you're
either,
going-
right, we can do
It's
either
just
or.
Either or type of thing.
Right, if we know it's gonna be a while, we'll probably, if they don't pay, they'll probably end up in small claims court or that, something of that sort. To collect
Makes
the
sense.
fee.
Thank you.
I move we approve ordinance number 14.
No, just first reading tonight.
First reading tonight, okay.
That's it.
You get to hear
I
it
got
again.
this. I'm gonna try that again.
You can in a couple minutes, if we got
Yeah,
a
I was
second.
gonna say, I got
The
the two
next one
flipped
you
around,
can-
of which one's the second and first. Thanks,
All
Bill.
right. So we're all
Tried
set
to.
with that? No action on that.
Okay.
Number 11, communications and petitions. We added 11A, which is temporary liquor license for the Fresh Palate LLC. I think everybody has a copy of it. Who wants to read that? Want me to read it? I've got the application in front of me. It's a type of event for charity events for nonprofits. The dates requested are June 14th, August 16th, July 4th, and August 30th. Can I assume that those are all on a Saturday?
Yes.
Yes? Thank you. Eric Peterson is here from Fresh Palace, if anybody's got any questions. It's in the alleyway, providing their own security, 4-foot snow fence. Any other details in here that are, they have a dance permit? Oh, no, they have no temporary dances, temporary entertainment. They have a live band or intend to have a live band. And there's a map. So, and it's to my understanding that the Chief Jet has somewhat taken a look at this, so,
Correct.
had a chance to-
Mr. Peterson, that we submit the names of the charities, which we, as common, for like, we did that with Chiefs, as names of the charities, so we did it for these events.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I think what we had, either Greg or somebody had mentioned to me that, a possibility of approval with the stipulation of Chief Jet's approval, once he gets those.
Completing his investigation and signing off.
Final
That the
details.
mayor can go ahead and sign off now. That way we allow it to move ahead as quickly as we can for Eric and
And there's no
Stacy.
noise variance request.
Are you looking, will you be looking for a noise variance as well?
How late is this gonna be going to at
Well, we're
night?
open until 11, so I would imagine we'll probably go a little later than that. Well, 1 o'clock, so maybe, yeah, I guess.
Punch in a temporary noise
Yeah.
variance on the same dates.
We do 10 and 12 on Chiefs.
So
Yeah,
you wanna do it
Chief
10 to,
was still midnight.
you want midnight or you want 1?
Could we go for 1?
I don't know.
How about
Candy?
12:30? How about 12:30?
Midnight I'd be happy with.
What's pretty
Midnight?
pretty common downtown? Midnight anyhow, probably, or midnight would be fine?
That sounds reasonable.
I would think we're gonna get some noise, I mean, like a canyon down there, that's only, it will be amplified
Yeah,
with the buildings.
okay. And this doesn't, the way the map shows, this doesn't close any road traffic at all. It's all right in the alleyway.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
I'll throw one thing out there real quick, and I think maybe 4, 5, 6 years ago, previous city manager had a vision of using that alley for concerts and bands and to get some action downtown. So I think this would be an interesting, I say experiment, but to see the feasibility of that, that really draws people down. And so I'm kind of excited to utilize that space and see what happens from there.
Good party.
So do we have the noise ordinance from 10 until midnight?
Yeah.
And I was just taking a quick look at my calendar. June 14th is a Saturday. July 4th is a Friday. No, it's okay, just for clarification. And then 16th and 30th are also Saturdays, so there's just one Friday.
And Eric, do you know the charities off the top of your head or not?
The first one is going to be the Volleyball Association, the second one is gonna be, Trails,
Rails to Trails, or?
what? Thunder Bay Trails Association, thank you. And then the other two, I haven't even came up with events for, but there's a processing fee with each one, so I put 2 extra dates on there, hoping to come up with events. Not necessarily gonna even need it, but.
All right.
just let us know. If you do them, just let, probably either Chief Jed or Karen know who the charity is, that's all.
And would we ordinarily, would something like this go through the DDA process first, or not necessarily, or just to make sure that they don't have?
Did
any
you
other plans on
contact?
this?
I did not.
The DDA, probably yes, but because of the time crunch, and I don't think there's going to be any issue with the DDA. They've been very supportive of any of these types of things, so, I'll, either Ken or I, we can contact, Leslie tomorrow and just make sure that they don't have any major issue, but I would doubt it.
For the time of day.
And you're well aware of you've been involved with the DDA.
I'm sorry, sir?
You've been involved with the DDA and things like that as well, so that was my only
Yeah, just as long as
concern.
there's no conflict of dates is probably the only thing that I would really need to check with DDA.
Yeah.
Should there are any other events going on.
Because the only one might be the 4th, but I don't think it's gonna be anything downtown, so you should be fine there.
Okay. So with those, just with those clarifications, I suppose, with Chief Chat and the DDA and the noise.
I'll move, but man, that's a tough one to kind of, there's a lot of things added on there, to include the noise variance from 10 to 12. Okay.
Depending on Chief Jet's approval.
Right.
Depending on Chief Jet's approval, thanks, sir.
Second.
Nielsen,
Yes.
Noah,
Yes.
Sexton,
Yes.
Walagora,
Aye?
Johnson.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Unfinished business, the second reading of ordinance number 14-427, and ordinance amending section 94-2 Parking Violations Bureau.
Consistent with council policy, this would not be read again unless somebody specifically wishes for me to do so.
So if we asked you to, you have to.
Correct.
That's how it works.
And we got a little bit extra time, so. I haven't read my quota for the day either, so.
The Tigers won, so.
Yeah. Anyone have issues with that?
We went through this several times.
Yeah. Someone can move.
I move we approve 14-427.
Second.
Noah,
Yes.
Sexton,
Yes.
Walagora,
Aye?
Johnson,
Yes.
Nielsen.
Yes.
That was it.
Well, we adjourn.
Second.
Nobody's used to this sort of meeting.
We don't have it.
You are watching All About Alpena.